World Cup final, South Africa against New Zealand. The Springboks against the All Blacks. Greatest rivalry ever. 95 was the last time they met in a final. But before we get to the final, we've got the exclusive here. Zels and myself, World Rugby have finally apologized to Rassie Erasmus for the debacle that was Nick Berry in the first test, British and Irish Lions against the Springboks at Cape Town Stadium in 2021. They banned Rassie for a year because he highlighted that Nick Berry got something like 28 decisions wrong in the game. Finally, after a long process of 2 years, World Rugby has come out and punished Nick Berry. They've given him the third and fourth playoff to officiate in Paris against Argentina and England.
Mate, if you compare it, I think Rassie got off lightly.
I think so. So Nick Berry is going to officiate a game that no one wants to be at, and that no match official wants to be at, and guaranteed he's going to stuff it up. But thank God he's not on the touch for the final. We've got an all-English match officiating. Wayne Barnes will be in charge. The question there is, who does Wayne Barnes hate least, South Africa or New Zealand? And I think it's a bit of a toss-up. I don't think he digs either team too much.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to the day. You know, maybe that equal hatred will actually leave the game in the players' hands and they'll decide their fate.
Wayne Barnes, 2007, he was in charge in Cardiff. He didn't award a penalty to the All Blacks in 44 minutes, despite France making 260 tackles. He awarded a try to France with a pass that went about 2 meters forward, running the touch with Johnny Kaplan. He missed it as well. And while New Zealand may have forgiven him, I don't think Wayne Barnes has forgiven New Zealand for the torrent of abuse. And he may be thinking, I've waited 16 years for this moment.
He's waited 16 years to prove it was no accident.
I may have screwed you in Cardiff. I'm now going to do it in Gay Paris. 1995, the two teams met. Madiba was there. 15-12 extra time, 100-minute. The Joel Stransky drop that went over. The Andrew Mertens one that didn't. Read a wonderful piece written by Phil Gifford, the renowned veteran Cantabrian New Zealand scribe. And for his wife's 50th, he hosted a fantasy party. And Andrew Mertens came in Joel Stransky's World Cup winning outfit. And he said that was his fantasy, to be the guy who kicked the drop goal in the World Cup final and didn't miss it.
Wow.
So that was his fantasy character. And Mertz, because they said, was it because you were born in Durban, spent your first 6 months of your life in South Africa? And he said, no, it's because in my fantasy world, I always imagine kicking the winning drop goal in a final, not missing it.
He had a few cracks, but yeah, he missed.
Not missing it. 28 years it's been for the Boks and the Springboks to get back to a World Cup final. They've played in a pool game. Well, let's start it. They played in a final 95.
Yeah.
Boks won at 15-12 against all expectation. The next time they played, 99, Cardiff. I was there. Terrible night. 22-18, the Boks won. Brayden Paulson scored the try. Playoff for third and fourth place.
It was a great game.
2003, disastrous. Melbourne, 29-9, 3 tries to 0. The Carlos Spencer pass to Joe Rakathoko. Embarrassing night for us. US Van der Westhuizen's last ever match for the Boks. They gave him the Guard of Honor, his 89th test. 29-9. Then we went to a thriller in 2015 semi-final. And the Boks lost 2018. Dan Carter put on a masterclass.
Yeah. 5
penalties from Pollard and obviously one from Pat Lambie. 2018, and that was the greatest New Zealand team we've seen in the professional era. They went on to thump the Wallabies at 34-17 the next weekend and win back-to-back World Cup titles, having won at home in New Zealand in 2011, winning at Twickenham in 2015. And then 2019 in Yokohama, the big sought-after match, a brutal match. The All Blacks winning 23-13 against the Boks in a game where they led 17-3. The Boks brought it back to 17-13. And a match I remember for Richie Mohanga's incredible turn, chase,
tackle,
and catch on Cheslin Colby that proved to be match-defining. He also kicked 2 late penalties. So they'd played each other 5 times, 3-2 to New Zealand, the greatest rivalry that there is in World Rugby. And it all starts again in a final. And it couldn't start in a better place than Paris, the Stade de France. And it was the one that everyone thought would happen in 2007, when the Boks got to Paris, and the All Blacks never made it to Paris. They never made it to the City of Love. They played their quarterfinal in Cardiff and never came back to France. They went home. So it's been a long wait for the world. It's been an incredible week, Zels, of so much reverence and so much respect from New Zealanders towards South Africans, from South Africans towards New Zealanders, watching all the YouTube, all the television kind of interviews, all the ex-players, the legends of the game, the icons of the game, just talking with absolute love about the opposition. That these are two teams that go for each other for 80 minutes, 85 minutes, and they first into the other one's shed to have a beer. And that just doesn't happen with the Springboks and any other team in World Rugby. They are our greatest foe. It's going to be a ripper. And what's going to make it even more of a ripper is that it's going to rain in Paris on Saturday night. It's going to be conditions like the Boks had against England, not like the All Blacks had against Argentina. And the Boks have gone back to their Twickenham formula. It's taken us 100 years to figure out how to beat New Zealand. We now know. You pick 2 packs.
I love that. Yes. I mean, wow. It's going to be one hell of a final. You talk about the tradition and the history, and all obviously valid to give us context to sink our teeth into what is going to be a juicy final. But obviously, once the whistle goes, none of that means anything. It's 80 minutes of contest, and on the day, it's going to come down to these guys deciding it. Like John Smith said, he was joking. Subconsciously, this is the final the Northern Hemisphere wants it. Hilarious, probably true. In terms of World Rugby, does it get better than the All Blacks versus the Springboks in a World Cup final for all the marbles?
Well, now some of the Northern Hemisphere are trying to claim us as a Northern Hemisphere side because some of our players play up there. It's actually not that many that play up there. There used to be a lot, but most of our players are now in the URC and they're playing in Japan. So it's a sprinkling. It's a sprinkling of players that are playing for the Springboks, and one of them is Handré Pollard, who plays for Leicester. Handré Pollard, in episode 6, we said 10-1 was the headline. 10-1 was that he would be at the World Cup. In episode 13, we said, stop the madness and get him there. And eventually they got him there. I didn't want Malcolm Marx to go down. I thought it would be one of the scroll-offs that they would send home. So we lost an incredible player, but we gained Pollard. He has been sensational.
Sensational.
He has shown what a big match player is. This kid has done it from when he first laced his boots at Parel Gymnasium out in Paarl. The alma mater of Jean de Villiers, of Maurice Joubert, De Wet Barry, Peter Rousseau, and obviously the legend himself, Skalkberger. Those are just some of the names. Grant Williams is a late addition to that Springbok list. But Handré Pollard, Province Under 13 captain, Province Under 16 captain, Province Under 18 captain. Heineke Meyer spotted him at 15, signed him when he shouldn't have. He went to the Bulls. This is the only kid in the history of South African rugby that was pulled out of school in his matric year in 2012 to play for the SA Under-20s. He played at Fly-Off against New Zealand in front of 35,000 people. I was one of them there on a cold night. We won. He kicked a drop goal from 40 meters, banged over most of his kicks, and then went back to school to write his exams the next day. No schoolboy has ever gone and played again. He then went with the Under-20s the next year, lost in a final. The following year, he was the player of the tournament, made his test debut against Scotland, scored a lot of points, and then in his first match against the All Blacks as a 20-year-old, 2 tries, 19 points in the first 55 minutes at Ellis Park, and crazy enough, Heineke Meyer pulled him just to keep his feet on the ground. The clutch kick against Wales, 69, 22 points in the 2019 World Cup final. Impressive performances against the British and Irish Lions, given he had been inactive for so long, he had COVID, and then to come into this World Cup and nail 10 from 10. That first kick against Tonga, wrong side, in the corner, 26 seconds to go on the clock, boom, he nails it, and he hasn't stopped nailing it all kind of World Cup. And here's an interesting stat, while we wrap up just what an incredible player Handré Pollard is. In that 2012 Under-20 World Cup final, the Boks lost to Ireland 23-19 in the opener. And then came through and beat New Zealand in the final. If you're looking for signs, the Boks lost 13-8 to Ireland at this World Cup. And they've called on Handré Pollard to come do the business in a World Cup final against the All Blacks. Polly's our man. He starts in one of several changes, two big changes at halfback. Faf starts, Handré Pollard starts, no Mani Bokke in the 23, no specialist scrum up on the bench. Your thoughts, Zalim?
I was reading between the lines there. Are you saying Handré Pollard is a good player? Is that what you're trying to get across there?
Well, I'm just saying to his parents, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for producing Handré Pollard, okay? And my neighbor, I chatted to him last night, big rugby fan, and I said, what about Pollard, eh? And he said, yeah, and I just want to thank my mom for that. I said, your mom? He said, yeah, she's a math teacher at Paul Gym. And he went to Paul Gym as well. And Handré Pollard used to do after-school lessons with his mom in terms of getting his angles right. I said, well, she's a goddess because that guy knows exactly how to split the uprights. So to all the people in Paul, wow, thanks for giving us Handré Pollard. As the Kiwis say, not Handré Pollard.
The time that he was away from the box squad and not selected, I wonder whether they didn't just send him to sniper school because, like you say, he hasn't missed a single kick, which is not really his track record, right? He's got a history of sort of roller coaster stuff.
Yeah, he's a 75% kicker tradition. He's 75, 76%. But he's had those off games where the radar hasn't quite functioned. But as we said, he's looking leaner. He's just looking happier. He looks like that kid who first started playing for South Africa. Not like someone who was drained from the weight of expectation. He went through a horrendous injury run, especially after the 2019 World Cup. He signed for Montpellier, highest paid player in the world, and played 25% of his games over 4 years. Went to Leicester, got injured in the first game, and everyone thought, here it goes again. Again, suffered 13 months not playing Test rugby before he played the game against Tonga. For him to have come and done what he's done in the last 3 weeks, wow.
And I think, look, 7 forwards on the bench is a slight giveaway as well. But Handré back to 10 is an indication that the Boks are going to revert to type and play, especially with the conditions, a more traditional Springbok plan this week.
Well, we've got the two best packs we're going to see in the World Cup. South Africa A, South Africa B, up against an improving New Zealand pack. Jason Ryan has said,
big time,
we think we're up for the challenge. They showed they were up for the challenge at Ellis Park. I mean, wow. Those guys fronted. They fronted like they did against Ireland in that quarter-final. Twickenham, is it a blueprint, the 35-7, the way we were 35-0 up after 60 minutes? Or should we really be looking into a bit more detail? They didn't have Brodie Retallick. They didn't have Tyrell Lomax after a few minutes, their prop. They didn't have Shannon Frizzell. There's a suggestion that they were in a loading phase of preparation. They got 3 yellow cards, and we played particularly well. We played to our strengths. We didn't kick for poles. We kept on attacking that touchline. We kept on driving, using the lineup more effectively, and obviously we were dominant at the breakdown. Could they have lulled us into any form of false pretense that 7-1 you think works, but actually you could be surprised that it's not?
No. I think we spoke about it after that game. We said it was a bit of a perfect storm. And it is an anomaly in the history of the rivalry between the Springboks and the All Blacks. I think the plan, as much as I would have made a few tweaks to the squad, the 7-1 split I think is a great decision for this week. The reality is, even if you're a neutral observer, the All Blacks are a potent team with a potent history, but they don't have the depth that the Boks have up front. And no other team does. And so to leverage that in the final makes complete and utter sense. All of those guys have played a lot of rugby. It's the most experienced team in the history of South African rugby. And bringing on the heavy guns to replace the heavy guns is exactly what the Boks should do in this game. We don't need to try and out-All Black the All Blacks. Like Victor Matfield said in his little podcast, he said to Andy Ellis, you guys play with skill, we play with physical intensity. And that's the truth of it. And having this loaded bench is exactly the way to go. Is it risk-free? No. If we have multiple injuries in the back line, it could get a bit tricky. But you've got to take risks, to win it. So you've got to risk it to win the biscuit. What do they say?
I don't know. Who's they?
The people. So I think it's exactly the right move. It's the right way to play against the All Blacks. I'm hearing talk that when the All Blacks team gets named tonight, that Nepa Lalala might be the guy that's on the bench. That is the heavy artillery that they have. They just don't have the guys to front what we bring off the bench. I am surprised that we went again with Kitsy and we went again with Dwayne, that we didn't refresh anybody there. A guy like Jasper didn't play in the semi and has now been consigned to a bench role. There's a guy I might have put on, full guns, go for it in the first 40. But obviously they're way, way, way closer to the action. They know their plan like nobody else. So there will be reasons for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, depending on kind of your view. Is you get a good start because of the experience of Kitsy, experience of Dwayne. Pollard builds a bit of scoreboard pressure and momentum. The other side is you need those players to be on the field in the last 15 minutes if it is tight. Although you look at a Jasper Wiese and you look at an Oxenchair, and they're not inexperienced players.
No, not at all.
They've been around now for the best part of the cycle between 2019 and 2023. Yeah. And when is a player inexperienced and when is he kind of quite seasoned? And I would like to think the learnings that Oxenchair has been through, and Jasper Wiese as well, they've entrusted him in big games at 8. He certainly has matured and improved his game, and he attributes a lot of that to the coaching staff at Leicester, that he's not quite as manic. And if the occasion just doesn't get to him, because he could be a bull in a china shop coming off the bench, cleaning out someone and getting a card. I mean, that is always exactly an option. You look at the Scott Barrett brain farts and implosions. Jasper is prone to do that kind of thing as well. And I don't think Wayne Barnes will have any hesitation going into the pocket and giving a card.
None.
The stat we spoke about previously, Wayne Barnes in 100-plus test matches, there's been 6 red cards that he's been involved in and 95 yellow cards. So he's not afraid to make a big call. So discipline is going to be paramount, but accuracy ties in with discipline. If you're accurate, you are disciplined. Two very, very much formed teams in the World Cup, different kind of form. We're like a slugger that's hanging in there. We just won't go away. They do seem to have improved. Got the French game out the way. I think France just looks at it and thinks, how the hell are they in the final and we not? I look at their forward performance against France, and yes, they were missing. It's a bit like Twickenham. They were missing a couple of those heavyweights. Shannon Frizzell makes a big difference, and Brodie Retallick. But again, France's backup bench wasn't as strong as South Africa's, and that became decisive in that quarterfinal when we beat them. We did have the firepower up front coming off the bench to hand with them. The same with England. Dominated us for 66, 67 minutes. The minute we got into the game at 15-13, I've watched that game several times this week. The last 12 minutes, England actually weren't in it. You felt that they were running away with it because watching it live, it was 15-13. But 4 scrum penalties to the box in that period, absolute dominance, and that was because of the bench. Not just the scrumming, but the explosiveness of Kwagga Smith and obviously Dion Fourie. So we felt there could have been changes in at 8, and Lou said basically that's it. And in the backs, the question was Willie le Roux to start ahead of Damian Willemse, maybe given the conditions. What I didn't expect, I expected the 7-1 split, but I didn't expect to see Willie le Roux as the other. Why not go with an 8-0?
Beautiful. That would have been glorious. Yeah, look, I love that bench. I love the 7 forwards. The monsters are going to do real damage, and we've got the insurance of having a whippet like Kwagga to complement it if the game does break up. And he's also a guy who allegedly can cover positions in the back line. So, fabulous. I am surprised by Willie le Roux. I do think he has been integral to their whole kicking plan and transition attack and being a playmaker. Handré Pollard still has to put both heels on the ground to pass the ball. Willie le Roux is a guy who can unlock teams, and he's got experience of whatever the role is that they've created for that second playmaker. Willie has been there since the genesis of it. So, I get it. The point that you made was then why wouldn't you start him? I think what they like about Damian Willemse is the Marnie Lebokness of him, to break a game open with athleticism, handling. He's a guy who can really explode. I don't know if Willie's really the athlete he was when he started out. So they obviously prefer Damian Willemse in that role to start, but they don't want to be in a position where if Damian does get injured or there is an injury and Damian has to move, that they lose the fluency of that second playmaker. I'm guessing.
Would you, with all the options available, would you have included Willie le Roux in the 23 for this final?
No, but then I don't know their plan the way they know their plan.
No, I'm asking,
so I wouldn't know.
Who would you have put as...
I would have had Marnie Lebok there just because he is the guy who's been in the saddle kicking at goal. And even though he is erratic, he does have reps recently if Handré Pollard goes down, are we going to Faf to do the goal kicking? What are we doing there? So that's a concern for me. That's why I would have had Marnie there. And he's also a guy who is versatile enough to fill any one of the 9, 10, 15 positions. Whereas for me, Willie is the specialist fullback.
And I've been saying for a while, go 7-1, even if you want to go 8-0. And people kind of mocked me 8-0. And I said, go 8-0. And Cheslin Colby covers 9. They're comfortable, obviously, that Colby can cover 9. How ironic would it be that Colby scores the match equaling try from the base of the scrum and has to convert it?
I mean, where you would actually see, you'd think it's a shooting star, but it would be Nick Mallett going overhead.
I told you! I told you 10 years ago, play him at 9. But I mean, he's value to that team. He can play 14, 11, 15, play him at 10 or 9, and he can kick some goals.
Yeah.
I mean, incredible rugby player, Cheslin Colby.
The thing is, he is valuable where he is, right? I mean, he is explosive and among the world's best, exactly where he is. Key player in our defense. So it would be tricky to move him.
So we talk about Deon Fourie ad nauseum, consistently. Not because he's from Cape Town, not because he's a Western Province man or a Stormers.
Or not because he's particularly good looking. That's not the only reason we talk about
it. And not because of his love for brandy and Coke. But
yeah.
Just an incredible human being, an incredible journey. 8 years in France, came back to help out at Province, found himself in the URC, found himself winning the URC and being integral, and then found himself as the oldest Springbok on debut. Sensational when he came off the bench against England. He's in a World Cup final in Paris against the traditional foe, the All Blacks. Wonderful story. But for me, an incredible story, Jean Klein. Left on the behest of Rassie Erasmus and Jacques Nienaber, left Cape Town. They said, come to Munster. Come add some of your mongrel and grunt and we'll develop you further. They obviously loved what they saw with him in Cape Town. He impressed Joe Smith so much that he made the 2019 World Cup squad as soon as he became eligible for Ireland. Went there, played 5 games, clearly did not impress Andy Farrell because never got a look in for 4 years. They omitted him from the wider training group of 43 players Ireland, despite being outstanding for Munster. This is a guy who played in nearly every game and averaged 73 minutes a game. And Rassie and Jacques phoned him and said, would you consider a switch back to the country of your birth and where you were raised? And he's in a World Cup final. Yeah. He's the first ever Irish international to make it to a World Cup final. How cool is that?
That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. And like you say, his story started at Province with Rassie and Jacques. So full circle. Getting back to Deon Fourie, I've been very cautious and very hesitant about having that guy cover hooker. Obviously covered him quite a lot when he was at the Stormers and Province back in the day. I've had my reservations. But I honestly believe that this weekend, he may not be named man of the match, but I think Deon Fourie is going to have the game of his life. I think that guy is going to go out in flames. I think he really is going to give it all when he gets on the field. And I think he was spectacular last week. I think he's going to be even better this week.
Yeah, just having been involved with the Springboks myself in the early 2000s, obviously all my family roots on my mom's side in New Zealand, all my family lives there. I'm a Cape Townian, South African Kiwi with a lot of Irish in him. It's there for me isn't a bigger game. I just love these two teams. My born in New Zealand, full on All Blacks. I'm born in Cape Town, Kuilsriver in the northern suburbs, full on Boks. We've had many a argument. He's obviously the older brother. I took a few beatings from 1976 onwards. Him in the black jersey, me in the green and gold. So the rivalry's been so intense within our family. I know he's rooting for the All Blacks, but he said if there's one team that he can still bear winning it, it would be the Springboks. I kind of feel the same as well. A lot of people said, it'd be nice if France or Ireland won it, not the All Blacks. To me, they are our greatest foe. If you're going to beat someone, beat them, and if you can't, lose to them. Just make sure we pitch up for the final. So a lot of intense rivalry in the family. I'm wearing the Bokke jersey today, but I'm not wearing just the Bokke jersey. I'm wearing a particularly special Bokke jersey given to me by an individual who's become a very good friend over the years. He's an incredible rugby player, Percy Montgomery, 2007 World Cup winner, won in New Zealand 98 with Nick Mallett's team, was the goal kicker on the day, won in 2008 in Dunedin, started as a fullback and the goal kicker, 10 years in between wins there. Won at his beloved Newlands in Cape Town against the All Blacks. Played his 100th test, first ever to get to 100, ever Bokke, at Newlands, in front of his late dad. My dad as well. Those two got hammered at the bar in the SA Rugby magazine suite. It was a very special day. And for my birthday a couple of years ago, he gave me this jersey because of the connection between New Zealand and South Africa. And it's the jersey he wore in 1997 at Eden Park when the Boks unfortunately took a 55-35 under Carl du Plessis defeat. But Monty scored one of the, like he says, very well planned tries where he aimed it for the North Harbour Albany. He aimed it up and under to go over the Auckland Bridge. And it ended up left side of the field. He followed it, bounced, and he scored. Where he announced himself in that season, like basically as a Springbok. He was playing in the midfield. The number 13 is still tattered from there. It's still got some pieces of Eden Park's grass in it. And he gave that to me with a wonderful inscription. I'm wearing this in honor of him today, a guy who's beaten the All Blacks, who's respected them, who's fronted the haka and come away smiling, a guy who's won the World Cup. His performance in 2007, 12 points out of 15, 4 kicks out of 4, and to take us to 9-3 just before halftime, he did it with torn knee ligaments in his right knee. And his message to Clint Reedhead and Jake White, when Jake White said to Clint Reedhead, just strap it and keep him on. And Clint said to him, can you take the kick? He said, if I land on the right knee and I'm still standing, you're not getting me off this field. The kick went over. He added another one in the second half. Toby Flood pushed him over. It could have basically destroyed his leg when he pushed him into the camera. That kind of bravery and heroism is what the Boks are going to need tomorrow night. And Monty has put a score to it as well. He said brutal game, Boks 26, All Blacks 18. So for those who are doing all the spreads at work, putting money down on the game, our first Boks centurion, Percy Montgomery, has given it to the Boks 26-18. It's a man who's been there and done it before. We look at the history, Zels, yes. All Blacks, Springboks, the icons, those who have played in the wonderful Test series, in the Rugby Championship, and obviously in World Cup playoffs. How deep can these guys dig? They've got a lot to answer for their ancestors and those who have come before.
Look, I don't think digging deep is going to be an issue at all. I think we're going to see it all. Nobody's going to leave anything out in the field, and I think that's what it's going to take to win this game. And that's why I think the Boks are going to win this game, because their backstory of this particular team is deeper than this All Blacks team. This All Blacks team is starting to find its feet and starting to grow in confidence, but their story as a winning team is a lot younger, this particular group under this particular coach, than where this Bokke team has come from and what this Bokke team has done to get to this final. As much as there's emotional wear and tear, there's also fortitude that comes with that, and that's why I believe the Boks will win. They'll beat the All Blacks in this final.
Never seen you look that confident, so give me the roar.
Ricky Rodriguez. Hey everybody, it's great to see you again. You're back for the final, man. We cannot wait for this. We know we are going to see Siya Kolisi lift this trophy, man. What a great day, hey? I hope you enjoy the final, and remember, keep enough snacks at halftime to get you to the final whistle.
People ask me, why do I ask you, give me the roar? Zels has a wonderful 8-year-old. I've got a 24-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So I'm back in the Shrek mode again, okay?
Yeah.
And in one of the Shrek movies, when Shrek's losing the plot, he's had 3 kids, he's at a party, and he kind of loses it, eh? And there's this kid screaming to him, give me the roar! Give me the roar!
Do the roar! Do the roar!
And Shrek just loses it, and he gives the roar, and obviously the whole movie plays out there. And whenever I chat to Zels, I'm like, I like to see Ricky come to the fore. So a key word there is to give me the roar. And at times he does a Shrek-like impersonation and refuses to give me the roar. But you did today, and I just want to say, love you, Daddy.
Love you, Daddy!
He gave me the roar. And I love how
you,
Shrek
Daddy.
in the end, when Fiona asked him, what was going on? What were you thinking? He said, there was this kid in my ear. He's going to give me the roar. Give me the roar. So this is a game to roar about. Let's go back and look at this Springbok World Cup. And another story that possibly hasn't been given as much consciousness and merit is the story of Jesse Kriel. 2015, he goes to the World Cup as one of South Africa's stars. Heineke Meyer picks a Damien Dealandi, Jesse Kriel combination. He moves him from 15 at the Bulls, basically into the midfield at 13. Tries him out on the win against Argentina. It's a disaster. Pushes him back to 13. He has an awful game defensively against Japan. A club player pushes him off and they get a historic win. But he comes back into his own, and the memory of that semi-final against the All Blacks is the bravery and the courage he showed against a very good All Black midfield, where 3 went into 2. The Ma, Nanu, Conrad Smith, Sonny Bill Williams trio. And there's that one of him being absolutely gutted in front of the post, and Sonny Bill Williams embracing him and picking him up. And apparently it said to him, but for a moment or two, it could have been you picking me up. And that's the camaraderie between the two teams.
Yeah.
Jesse then went to Japan, and it coincided with the birth of this amazing centre, the one we believe is the best 13 in the world, Lukhanyo Am. And he was willing to sit in the stands and play that support role throughout, be incredible with those 23 who were picked, be an incredible positive influence to the team. And how ironic that it's Lukhanyo Am sitting in the stands, having to do that role 4 years later because of circumstance. And it's Jesse Kriel who just made it impossible for them to leave him out.
Yeah, spot on. He's taken his chances when given them. He's waited patiently for them. He has timed. It's taken a while, but he's timed it so that he's peaking at exactly the right moment.
You know, that Welsh 52-60 win in Cardiff, that just gave him the confidence we saw from him when he first came on the scene. It's a game that allowed him to prosper. We were dominant, and he took that form into the World Cup. And just quarterfinals, semi-finals, wow, he stepped up, especially France. My goodness.
Yeah, he was massive.
He was just massive there in all aspects of his play. So it would have been such an injustice to have pulled him for this final. So Jesse Kriel, wow, you talk about Dion Fourie in terms of patience. It's one thing to spend your whole life chasing the Bokke dream, then saying kind of it's passed me by, and then somehow getting there. It's quite another thing to get it quickly and then be kept in the mix but never really get
On
invited.
the cusp of it, but never really break in.
Yeah, like the Nearly man of Bokke back play. Everyone else getting the plaudits, but Jesse Kriel, huge raps and huge ups to you.
Yeah.
We've seen Damien Delandy come through, consistently clutch player. We've called it all along. No disrespect to Andre the Giant. It was never going to be a question who was going to start in that 12 jersey. We look at that starting backline now, very similar to those players who were in the mix in 2019. Obviously, the person who's come through the most, Kurt Lee Arendse.
Yep.
I thought there may have been a temptation to play potentially the more physical Kane and Moody. I do think he's possibly a bit better under the high ball than Kurt Lee. Not that Kurt Lee's vulnerable under the high ball.
Yep.
When we look back on this World Cup, we'll also think Kane and Moody, they were going to unleash him. Maybe the time just wasn't right, and his World Cup will be the next one. And that they've gone with the experience of a Willie Leroux ahead of a Kane and Moody. But when you again look at the quality that's sitting in that stands.
No, precisely.
A Kane and Moody, a Lukhanyo Am, all 3 scrum-offs, and we got a few at home as well. Well, there is depth to the squad, which ties into what you said earlier. This is a team that's built over 6 years. They face adversity. They've had their defeats. They've learned their lessons. But they're a side that knows how to win.
Yeah, absolutely. These guys can pull it through in tough situations. They've proved it over the last 2 weeks. The players rallied massively to edge those France and then England. You talk about Kane and Moody and him not getting his shot to break into the starting lineup for this final. We don't really know what may have happened behind the scenes in terms of injuries or niggles or maybe not being able to train at full capacity. Trevor Nyakane comes in for Vincent Koch. There's a guy who's injured and going to miss the final. So Trevor's had to wait for his shot, and now he's got it. And he now stars where he missed out in 2019. So, there's a lot of storylines that sort of come to a climax and come to a head in this final.
Okay, you talk, throughout this World Cup we've spoken, 6-2, 6-2, 5-3, wow, 5-3 again. Wow, should they not have gone a little bit different for England? Conservatively, we say, surely they're going to go 6-2, maybe even 7-1. Hey, how cool would it be 8-0? And the rains come down in Paris? Were they always going to go 7-1 for this All Black game?
You've got to think yes.
And somehow they always back themselves to get past England.
Yeah. See, the gamble for me was not so much England. The 5-3 against England, potato. We had
tomato.
Exactly. We had too much firepower there, and I expected us to beat England quite comfortably. The challenge was France. Picking the 5-3 against France surprised me. So I expected them to go back to the heavy bench, and that's what they've done this week. But it's still a gutsy call. Like I say, it's not risk-free, and it is a brave move. And I mean, like I say, you can accuse Rassie of a lot of things. Boring's not one of them. It's going to be an interesting final.
So go into Twickenham in a game where we were building in a very different way to the All Blacks, because as we said earlier in the week, maybe our loading game was the one at Ellis Park where we just hung in there for 40 minutes and defended against the Pumas. I was very critical of Rassie and Jacques after that. Kind of too emotional when I kind of condemned them after that game. Absolutely. You know, I sent him a text after the game as well and saying, you know what, glad you got the win, but geez, I just wanted a good send-off for Jacques at home. There was a bigger plan always, you know, and Rassie has said it in several media conferences. He knows he frustrated a lot of fans. They frustrated a lot of critics with their mixing and matching, but they were always reverse engineering. They were always working it back from a final. And how do they get a certain 23 in the mix for that final and make sure that they're there? The biggest surprise for me has been Dwayne. They said he had 5 games in him a year ago. He's played 5 games in the last 5 weeks, you know?
Exactly.
And somehow come through them. I mean, incredible.
Kudos.
Incredible ticker for that guy. And thanks Ulster for giving him a bit of a lease of life when he went there for that season, 2 seasons. Made a massive impression there. When you look at this Bokke team, was it the game against France? If we to win this World Cup on Saturday night, was it won against the host a fortnight ago? Or is it you've still got to go out and win this one? It's a different type of opponent you're playing, the All Blacks, to that French team.
Well, ironically, I think this World Cup, if they win it on Saturday, was won when they lost to Ireland. Because they made sure that they missed the All Blacks in the quarterfinals, and they ensured that they got the hosts in the quarterfinals. And I think the general sentiment behind the scenes is that you were never going to knock France out of a semi-final or a final. They were going to win both of those games if they got there. You had to get rid of them in the first round of the playoffs, because the support behind them and the general sentiment and the narrative would have been pushing in that direction. So by losing to Ireland, you avoid having to play the All Blacks in the first round. You line up France for the kill shot, and that's how we got here.
They may have wheeled out their own Madiba in the final. It would be 95 all over. The whole of Northern Hemisphere just wanting another victory for them.
Yeah.
We've spoken a lot about the Springboks, the boys we love, the coaching staff that is just unrivaled, possibly in the history of Bokke coaches in terms of what they've done and how they've come, and their partnership, Jacques and Rassie, that goes back over 25 years. The All Blacks, call them Fozzies, Foster's imposters for the best part of 2 seasons. Hammered them in Nelspruit 26-10. We thought, never seen an All Black side so vulnerable coming to Ellis Park at our Alcatraz. Welcome to hell. And they put 4 tries past us, played with such ticker, such guts, having all those limitations within their squad selections, limited coaching staff at that stage, and they got a win, a famous win, and then went to Christchurch and lost to Argentina. The difference now is they got that famous win at the World Cup against Ireland, a team they had struggled against, a team they had lost at home for the first time in a series ever. They'd come from a 42-19 win with no coach to losing 2 big tests with a coach that people said shouldn't be there. Ian Foster boarding Joe Smith, the mastermind behind Ireland for the best part of 8 years, an amazing tactician of the game. We see they call it the Schmidt plays. Will Jordan coming in, different angles, splitting a defense. And then obviously Jason Ryan, the impact he's made with the Crusaders under Scott Robertson. When he went with Vern Cotter to Fiji, he turned Fiji's back into a bit of mongrels. And he really has added such edge to the All Blacks.
Big time.
They then won that game against Ireland, and they went out and were so convincing against Argentina, 44-6, and it could have been 61-6. Richie Mohanga had passed to Will Jordan and also kicked another 50% of his kicks. When you look at their starting pack, where have you seen the improvements? Where do you see the threats to the Boks?
New Zealand are a well-organised team and technically on point. And I think if depending on how the breakdown is refereed, they are dangerous. They've proven in this World Cup that they can line up for 250 tackles. They've got the depth of belief in what they're doing and the patience and the discipline to do that. I keep talking about these guys. They haven't played the role I expected them to, but Aaron Smith, Richie Mo'unga and Beauden Barrett, you struggle to beat that combination. I think Bowden's going to have a decent game on the weekend. He's kind of been anonymous this World Cup. Aaron Smith, massive in the semi-final. Richie Mo'unga struggled with the kicks. So you expect those guys, they've misfired once or twice, Richie and Bowden. The Boks may be in for something there this weekend. Their pack has improved. They found a way to use Whitelock off the bench. Those young props are growing. They're going to be good props in the future, but they are young props, relatively. And then Artie Sevier is just a never-say-die guy, you know? Maybe not the conventional sort of sized international loose forward you expect from New Zealand, the Kieran Reeds, Richie McCaws and Jerome Kinos, but certainly a guy that can rally that team because he's in the Yaku Creel mode. He's on all action, all elbows and knees, never quit competitor. And so all of that put together makes them a formidable team. And like you say, with Jason Ryan there, giving them some belief and giving them a little bit of a hard edge, and Joe Schmidt adding a bit of nous, they are a very tricky customer that deserves to be in the final.
Well, there seems to, you spoke about this Springbok story is a lot older than this All Black story. And this All Black story would have started in Ellis Park. And I would imagine the core of these players will continue to play under Scott Robertson. There are retirements, Whitelock's going, Smith's going, Mo'unga's going to Japan. But there is a strong platform of player base that Scott Robertson now has, and he has the luxury that Jason Ryan's already in the system, that their story could unfold at the next World Cup. I listened to John Kerwin and Jeff Wilson on the breakdown, and John Kerwin said, you make it to a World Cup final, you've succeeded.
100%.
That this team has already succeeded, even though the ultimate prize is winning the World Cup.
And that's true for the Boks as well.
So it's once you get there, it's a lotto in a final. There can't really be a loser unless you don't pitch up like England did in 2019 and take a 20-point defeat because they were stuffing around all week thinking the Boks were a no-show. So that won't happen with the All Blacks. It certainly won't happen with the Springboks. But it's great to see the All Blacks competitive again. It's great to speak to them as being one of the top two teams in the world because it kind of wasn't cool to see them getting smashed by Argentina, getting manhandled by Argentina, getting rolled by Ireland. It just seems so wrong.
Absolutely. And we talk about the depth of the story. So since they lost to Ireland and Dublin at the end of 2021, they played 26 tests. Only 12 of those have been against the teams that were in the top 5 of the world rankings when the World Cup started. So Scotland, Ireland, France and South Africa. They've played 12 times against them since November 2021. They've won 5 of those games. And one of those wins was against Scotland. So they're 4 of 11 against South Africa, Ireland, and France. So as much as they've put up 10,000 points against Namibia and Italy and thrashed Argentina, and are certainly a team that seems to be turning the corner and coming good, they are a long way off, I think, from sort of drawing a line under that run of historically and traditionally odd results. I think when the heat comes, the Boks are going to have a lot more belief in their credibility and their credentials than the All Blacks because they are not far enough removed from that weird run of results.
When you talk about statistics, and to me the most prevalent one is, we can always look back on history and say in 1961, in 1983. However, let's look at the current squads. Since Rassie and Jacques took over in 2018, these two teams have met 10 times. And 2 of those matches have been in Australia because of the COVID restrictions that you couldn't travel to New Zealand. And it was 1-1. They won by 2 points with a late penalty. We won by 3 points, 2 points with a 2 points with a conversion from 1 point with Alton Yankees. They've played 10 times. The Boks have won 4, drawn 1, and the All Blacks have won 5. They've scored 27 tries. We scored 24 tries. We've scored 247 points. They have scored 240. Over 6 years and 10 matches. And we've won in New Zealand and they've won in South Africa. The average score between these two sides, these core group of players, South Africa 24.7, New Zealand 24. Jeez. Less than a point separates these two teams. Now, historically, when New Zealand have played at home, in all the 100-plus tests, they beat the Boks on average by 10 points. When they play in South Africa, they beat the Boks by 1 point. And when they play on neutral ground, they beat the Boks by 5 points. That's over 100 test matches.
Right.
But right now, less than 1 point separates these two teams. We had the Boks winning the quarterfinal by a point. We had them winning the semi-final by a point. Everything points to the final being decided by a point.
Yeah. I think it is going to be very close. I don't know if it's going to be a point, but I've got the Boks to win this by 5 points. And in a relatively, what we've seen in the World Cup, I don't think it's going to be a shootout. I don't think it's going to be the 30 points Jacques was talking about. I think the score is going to be, the overall score is going to be less than 40 points.
Well, you take that, talking of that, Jacques said we need 31 points, okay? In those 10 test matches, the All Blacks have gone 30 plus 4 times. The Boks have gone 30 plus 4 times. I mean, there's just absolutely... You go back to 2018, the Boks win it at the death, 36-34 in Wellington. The All Blacks come to Pretoria, they win it in the death, 32-30. It's just...
But you know what's different about that? I mean, so those numbers are very close. But the Boks would have been taking hits over those 6 years as they built this bench to create this squad that's 23 to 33 players deep, right? And so there will have been times in this rivalry over the last 6 years where the Boks have had to take a few hits to create the experience that we now have. Whereas for the All Blacks, after 6 years, they don't have a team with a bench. They've got a starting lineup that they've scraped together. Good players, well put together, but we've invested 6 years to create what we have. We built the bomb squad in 6 years. They've got nothing. And I think that gives us the edge in this final.
So starting 15s, they'll go toe-to-toe for an hour if they have to. Is that what you're saying? And then the heavy artillery comes and no one can match
Can't
that
match
second
that.
pack of ours.
How do you match 7 guys?
Do you see World Rugby changing the laws after this final to say you have to pick traditional 5-3 splits?
I mean, I think Russie's hoping for that because it just gives him a new challenge to conquer. You know, he'll find a way around it.
Pick 3 spectacular...
He'll play Kwaka on the wing for 3 years just so he can play...
3 spectacular backs and 3 forwards who can play in the backs.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I look at the rivalry, especially in the last 6 years, and, you know, you go pre-1992, the Boks are 21-16 up, but we had played more test matches in South Africa. And the late, grand Doc Craven used to say, we go there and they cheat us, they come here and we cheat them. Okay, so it was never neutral referees. Post isolation, and especially in the professional era, we'd have the odd occasion. You know, as one Kiwi mate told me, he said the difference between you and us is you remember the test you won and we remember the test we lost against you because they're so far and few between.
Fair point.
Few and far between.
Yeah.
He said, it's no longer a rivalry. Australia's our great foe, okay? And then
Sure.
you looked at the stats, and we were winning one every 6 tests against them, taking 57 points in Durban, 57 in Albany. I remember the one game we lost 41-13 in New Zealand, and Brian Abana scored a good early try, and Nick Mallett said on SuperSport, you got to take a lot of confidence from that try. And I was like, what has happened to us? Nick, you lost in the last minute to New Zealand and they wanted to bomb you. You know, you beat New Zealand 46-40 at Ellis Park. Sterling Mortlock kicked a penalty against Australia and you were fired because of questioning ticket prices.
Yeah.
What has happened to kind of our standards? And Rassi and Jacques have brought that back. They did that with the Stormers when they came in and they
Big
coached the
time.
Stormers. They were the only South African outfit that beat all 5 New Zealand outfits. And they did it through defense. They never won any of those games by more than 6 or 7 points.
They did it by defense, but also like Keo Applon on the counter-attack, you know, where the defense gave them ball and they cut people to pieces, a lot like the Boks.
These guys do know how to play against New Zealand.
Yeah.
Is this a horses for courses type approach? And if the final was against France or England or Ireland, do you think that 23 would have looked different?
No, I don't think it would look different, and it's a conspiracy theory, but I think that the quarters and the semis were set up for the final. I don't think the Boks were going to get through the World Cup playing a 7-1 split and get to the final and have the same impact. I think by then you've given people 3 or 4 games of tape to digest and say, okay, this is how this thing works. This is where the weaknesses are. By rolling it out in the final, it's got the full surprise factor. And now you're thinking, okay, now what?
So Twickenham was this. If it bombs, excuse the use of the word,
Yeah.
7-1, what Whoopi do? it's a friendly. It's a World Cup warm-up game. It doesn't. It finally shows, why haven't we done this for years? Would they have held it back and played 7-1 if it was France in the final? Or England in the final? Or do they think it's specifically this All Black side, respect to their starting pack, but the vulnerability, the one area Boxfield they can attack them is in the last 20 up front, where if you go back to that New Zealand 2011, 2015 team, which their best team in the professional era, one of the best ever to play the game, their strength was what was coming on in the backs, the Sonny Bill Williams, the Bowden Barretts coming off the bench, that no team could live with in the last 20 minutes in their conditioning. We've reversed that to bringing on basically a whole new scrum.
Yeah, but I think, if you're honest about the state of world rugby, and even traditionally, no other country has the depth of forwards. South Africa is a gold mine for forwards. We produce forwards like no other country in the world. And so we have always had the capacity to do this. I think there are a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons other teams haven't done this before now is because they just don't have the cattle to pull it off. And so Rassie spotted the gap and he's taken it. It is not risk-free like we've spoken about, but I think regardless of who they played, from what I remember about my time with Rassie, this final is about scoring more points than the opposition. It's got nothing to do with style or any of that other stuff. It's about making sure that the scoreboard says you got more points than the other guys when the ref blows the final whistle. And there is no substitute for power in rugby. If you can physically dominate your opponents, you've won the game 9 times out of 10.
Okay, going back to New Zealand, listening to Jason Ryan's comments during the week as well. There have been 2 matches where we've struggled to live with them. It was Ellis Park, where they came out and they blitzed us in the opening 20 minutes. They were 15-0 up. We managed to fight back that game to actually get into the lead and then had nothing in the tank with 10 minutes to go. Mount Smart in Auckland, 17 points up within 15 minutes. Blitzed us. Everything stuck, but they played with pace, intensity, and they used the width of the pitch so effectively. We got back into that game again, but it was too little too late, and they ended strongly, and we got a late Kwagga Smith try. 15-point differential there, and they got the 12 points at Ellis Park. Imperative that the Boks aren't 15 points down after 20 minutes. It has to be 3-all, 6-all. There has to be parity from the Boks. They have to just start well and impose their own tempo, their own style, because the only way they depower that Bok setup is they run our forwards across the park to make tackles and get us to introduce the bomb squad individually and not as a collective.
Yes, but I don't think we're going to see that because they're going to slow the game down. We're going to see the 9 and 10 kick like we haven't seen them kick at this World Cup. I think we're going to see salvos from Faf de Klerk. I think Handré is going to take the points when they're on offer. And the All Blacks are not going to be getting long kicks into space that they can make some decisions. They're going to be catching the ball with Peter Steph du Toit and co. swarming them, and then trying to find somewhere where just get up for air and survive that and then move. And I think if they try and play out of that cul-de-sac, New Zealand are going to potentially find themselves in some trouble. The only way they got around us when you played them at the last World Cup was a great cross kick, Severies beat my pimps, and they unlocked us there. And I think they're going to have to revert to a risky attacking game to try and get around the defense that's coming this weekend. I expect massive line speed, huge kicking game, and Handré kicking the points.
Where would they feel they can beat the Springboks?
I think there's a part of them, and maybe this has been the plan, that thinks the Boks are willing to take a few chances in kick receipt and sometimes in attack and play a bit of a wider game, and that brings New Zealand into it. That brings the speed of that rapid backline of theirs into play. But I think all of that gets dialed down this week, and I think we return to the shortest route to victory. So if the Boks indulge in that kind of game and stand toe-to-toe with New Zealand in terms of the attacking game, we can come up second best, but I don't see it happening.
All right, the great teams find a way to win, and they win ugly. The Boks won ugly against England. They didn't win ugly against France. They won heroically against France. Heroically coming first, not second. The All Blacks didn't win ugly against Ireland. They won heroically by defending their line. Does New Zealand have the mental makeup, because it's not in their natural DNA, this particular squad of players, to get into a slugfest with slippery conditions and come away with a 15-14 win? Can they do that? Or will they try and play with a pill that they can't actually, it's like a bar of soap?
Yeah.
Is their natural DNA potentially going to be their Achilles heel in this final?
Definitely. It's not even about whether it's their natural DNA or that's the way they choose to play. That team is not built to play that kind of rugby. It's like if the Boks try to throw it around at the Jasper Wiese. It's just not going to work. They are a north-south team. And so New Zealand is built for speed and for evasion and for, tactical maneuvers to try and move a team around and to attack the creases and score tries like that. So unless the Springboks bring them into that game, I don't see how they can force that situation, because France tried. They kicked long. They came close, but it didn't work out. And that was a team that was chosen very differently to this one.
Okay, but with all your coaching pedigree and your kind of your analysis of the game, if someone said to you, how would you play against the Springbok side? From what you've seen over 6 years, given the personnel that the All Blacks have, what would you be saying to them? Like, how do you unlock them?
Does anybody have Susie's number? That's what I would be saying.
No, but there is a French chef that's wearing veldskoene. It's at the All Black Hotel. Check down what's under that hat and that big cape.
Mate, the Lions, the Emirates Lions, the guys from Joburg, they showed the blueprint for how you can beat teams when you are underpowered, when you can beat them with an athleticism. The difference is they play on the high velds, so they have a 20-minute factor where they're going to just run everybody off their feet in every game. They just have to live for 60 minutes. That won't be an issue in Paris. It's not on the high velds. To beat this Bokke team, you're going to have to get them to indulge in rugby that doesn't suit them. And I just don't think with the experience of this team and the heavyweights coming off the bench that it really makes any difference. I don't think you can draw the Boks out of the plan they have.
Okay. This Bokke team, 2019 World Cup winners. British and Irish Lions Series winners. One in New Zealand. They win this World Cup. Is it the greatest Springbok team in the professional era ever?
No doubt. Absolutely no doubt. They've beaten the best teams in the world to get there. They've gone back to back. They've done it their way. They've beaten... The director of rugby, or the head coach, went out of his way to draw the ire of world rugby and every official on the planet. And we've still powered into the final with an English referee against the All Blacks. You could make a case right now for this being the best Springbok team. If they win the final, it's guaranteed.
This All Black team, if they manage to beat the Springbok team, where do they rank?
You are way better positioned to answer that question than I am. I think they're a long way behind what Richie's men did. It would be a famous victory, but...
Richie's 2011 and 2015 back-to-back champions against this Springbok 6-year team.
Woo.
Who are you backing?
Mate, that is money. I would love to watch that game. When we finally get that flux capacitor, we can go back in time. I'm taking these Oaks. We're going to go play the...
And don't discount that Springbok side between 2007 and 2011. Oof. But for her horrific display from Bryce Lawrence, it could have been South Africa and New Zealand in Auckland at Eden Park in that semi-final. But that was history. What's to come on Saturday evening, 9 o'clock, will be the making of history. 3 World Cup titles for the Springboks, 3 for the All Blacks, 2 for Australia, 1 for England. This is the 10th one. It is the game at the City of Love, Paris, Saint-Denis. It is the 2 best teams in the world ranked 1 and 2. It's the defending champions against historically their greatest rival. To all the people in South Africa who still support the All Blacks, I pity you. To all the South Africans in New Zealand, julle man op brains by. You're allowed to wear your Bokke jersey, mate. And I know you guys are going to wear it very proudly on Sunday morning. It's that time, Zels.
Make your picks.
Time. Make your picks. Percy Montgomery has said the Springboks 26, the All Blacks 18. We have a mantra here. We never back against the Boks. Boks by 10. Boks by 10. Are you calling it Boks by 10 or not?
I'm calling it Boks by 5. 22-17.
All right. Rassie Erasmus and Jacques Nienaber will be anointed as the greatest coaches that the Springboks have seen, just based on what they've built in terms of a squad, in terms of transformation. And it will be one of our most cherished times in rugby history that we can put down, and that's what every youngster in this country will aspire to. There will be hope for the All Blacks because Scott Robinson will come in, and there will be a core of players who will have something to fight for going to Australia in 2027. It's going to be riveting. Zels and I will be chatting to you on Monday about it. It's going to be a classic game in the sense of the rivals. If you want to know where to put your money, visit the Money Man's page close to the game.
Yep.
Catch his show with Zels later on in the week where they talk about the betting odds, collector scores, who to pick, who not to pick, and how the game's going to play out. But wow, we've done 30 plus episodes throughout this World Cup. It's been amazing. I'm just so happy these two teams are playing in the final.
Yeah.
Wear your Bokke jersey and wear it proud. If you're a Kiwi in South Africa, wear it proud. We'll give you that consoling hug and that kiss and buy you that Jägermeister at the end. It's going to be a rilla, soos hulle sê. Bokke! Give us the roar.
Let's go!